Hi, everyone. I'm Joey Reese. Welcome to the Practice Center, where we talk about all things.
About mindfulness, forgiveness, and attitudinal healing. Good morning, Joey. Thanks for having me. So my name is Kaipo Paiva. I'm a sergeant in the Honolulu Police Department. I started this mindfulness journey, this mindful forgiveness journey, probably about 3 or 4 years with Joey, and we kind of walked it together. And so my role in the department, I'm the sergeant for the District 3 Community Policing Team. I'm also one of the lead facilitators for the recruit training for community policing. I'm also a trainer for our basic instructor development course, or that trains facilitators for the department. And I'm also one of the lead facilitators for our new Honolulu Police Department basic leadership development course, where we teach our leaders in the department leadership skills. And I've been in the police department for 21 years. And majority of my work in the police department for the last 11 years have been working with our youth in the Waipahu community, Waipahu Elementary, Honowai Elementary, and Waipahu High School. And in those schools, what that has to do with policing is that it's kind of similar to what DARE does. And what I found in the last 10 years was that every person who's committed a crime had something in common, is that they were once kids. And the reason why these crimes were being committed were because of the choices that they made. And so our focus when we work with these youth is we focus on the value of the choices they make and how they're making those choices. Mm-hmm. And what I've learned with working with youth for going on 11 years is that a lot of these kids who've made, I don't like to use the word bad, but not so great decisions or not the best decisions, were because they were made decisions because they were doing it based on emotions. A lot of school fights, a lot of cyberbullying, even drug use for these kids. Mm-hmm. Those decisions were made because there was an emotion inside of them that they didn't know how to experience or process, and didn't know any other way to express it except through saying hurtful things on the internet, getting into fights or violence, or even drug use. Yeah. And so when I met Joey, and she was working with kids in Youth Challenge in the Big Island, and I really connected with her. We're kind of like on the same wavelength about how we think and how we do things and how we see kids. And so I kind of drew to her, and we're kind of like, oh my gosh, am I staring into a mirror?
Yeah, you know? Kindred spirits, right?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
And I, as a police officer, when I became a police officer 21 years ago, going on 21 years now, I didn't know what forgiveness was. And my perspective of how a police officer is supposed to be is someone who is not affected by these crazy things that are going on in the world, or the crazy things that police officers see every single day. And what I didn't learn in the police academy was how to deal with these experiences even after they're done.
What were you taught? What were you taught to do with those emotions and experiences? Because it's not like anybody was denying that made an impact on people, right? We've known forever that trauma, vicarious trauma, that has an impact on a human being. So in the academy, what were you guys taught 20 years ago?
Basically, the only teaching that we got, or what we heard, what was said to us as recruits, was you guys got to compose yourself. You got to you can't ever let anybody see that you're not composed, or let everybody see that you're panicked, or let anybody see the emotions. You got to be professional.
Yeah. So then what did you do with those directions? So that's the direction that was given to all the officers. Everybody manages that differently, right? Or interprets it differently and does something different. So what did you specifically do with those instructions?
Well, as a 22-year-old kid with a gun and a badge, I took it as, oh, I just won't show them. In fact, if I just put it away on the shelf and bury them, maybe they'll just go away, and those feelings will just go away. And they never did.
Was there a specific instance that happened that you remember doing that with? Is there something that impacted you that happened out in the community as a young police officer that we would consider traumatic, or like a difficult experience, that you remember burying, that you remember going, don't think about it, don't talk about it?
I think for me, it was the first time that I had to go to a SIDS case, a sudden infant death case. And I remember it clear as day, where I walked into Palimomi emergency room, and I had to go look at this 9-month-old or 18-month-old baby who was lifeless.
Oh, God.
And I didn't know what it was I was feeling at the time. And all I could hear in my head is, I have to remain composed. I have to remain composed. And I still see that baby's face clear as day.
Oh my God.
And I remember seeing the parents and me saying to myself, well, I have to be strong and show them that it's going to be okay. But I don't think I really understood the magnitude of what it was for their parents until I had my son. And that memory, I think, even though it's been almost 20 years since it happened, the memory affects me today when I see my kids. And at that time, I was more afraid for what people would think about me rather than letting myself feel what I wanted to feel at that time.
So bearing that feeling, I mean, I'm so sorry for that experience. And I'm sure there are brand new officers that are having to deal with that like right now. So what did that buried don't crack or don't talk about it or don't express it, what did that do to you, do you think, in the way that you, I don't know, did your job or interacted with others? Like, can you make a direct correlation of some sort?
I found it easier to do my job because it disconnected and separated me from human beings. And I looked at police work as a task that had to be fulfilled versus how can I help people? And as it goes on and it goes on and it goes on, and police work got easier for me. It got easier for me to go to cases and look so very stoic and yeah, don't worry, I got it, whatever. Yeah, it's easy. Yeah, people get into accidents and break their necks all the time. Don't worry, I'll just write the report and go on my little way. And I guess the word that I was looking for is it kind of dehumanized me, and dehumanizing me. I kind of, in the same sense, I dehumanized people, and I just looked at people calling for help as work.
Oh my gosh. That's such an interesting way of putting it. On one hand, it's easier, but as you're talking about dehumanizing, how do you relate to that now as you hear yourself say that?
It doesn't feel good. And the kind of person that I'm striving to be, I feel guilty for the way I treated people back then. I want to be seen as human, and I want to be treated like a human, and I want my feelings to matter. And for me to know that I treated people that way once, there's a lot of regret, guilt, shame. And I could hear my ego right now talking to me, like saying, why do you think you can be this person when you want to be, when look at how you treated people for so long?
Did any of that bleed over into personal life or family life?
Oh, yeah. Do you want to count how many failed relationships that I went through because I dehumanized people? And I was really focused on, this is what I want and this is what I need. I should not only have my cake and eat it, I should have 4 cakes and eat it. And it should be all about me, because you know why? I got a badge and a gun and I'm always right.
Wow. So you can see that link, like what you were doing at work directly impacted that personal life and how you were looking at humans in the context of relationships.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Wow. 13 years of failed relationships where I blamed everyone else, that none of it was my fault. And the common denominator, my perspective was, the common denominator is that all these girls are crazy, except for me.
Dang. Yeah. But I mean, we hear that. It's so refreshing to kind of hear somebody make that link between kind of the guilt and the shame and the ability to dehumanize and disconnect from yourself at work, and how that plays out in all. We think we can compartmentalize. Like, I'm the stoic person at work, but at home, I'm this loving person. And we talk about during our work that it's not a one-to-one. If you're shut off in one arena, you're probably shut off in another, right?
They have a saying, how you do anything to some extent is how you do everything.
Yes. Yeah. So dang. So Kaipo, then when did you decide that you wanted to lean into this person who was seen as caring? When did you decide that getting in touch with your emotions was okay? And what has that done for you? Like any part of it that you want to touch on, I want to hear.
So maybe about back in 2012, 2014, I went to my first personal development seminar with this company called Clemmer and Associates. And it was my first time I've ever been to one of these self-help seminars. And I thought, I don't need any help, but let me see what they say because I want to use it because I was coaching baseball. And I said, let me see what I can get. I can use with my kids. And it was a door open for me that I didn't know about, because if you go to these things and you're going to a self-help thing, there must be something wrong with you.
Yeah.
And what I discovered is that there doesn't have to be anything wrong with anyone or anything to have better in your life. And the analogy I like to use is, yeah, having a Mercedes is good, or having a Honda is good, but you throw some rims on there and you made it better. That's the way I like to do the analogy. So fast forward, and the workshops are great. And don't get me wrong, they teach you how to change your perspective about perspectives. And what they teach is they teach you to connect your head and your heart so they work together, and maybe even a higher spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And they teach you to do that, but not necessarily how to do that. I don't know if that makes sense. And so in the seminar, I was really good at doing it. The problem is that when I was out of the seminars, because I went through all their seminars and I spent almost 30 grand on myself just to go through it.
What?
The problem was, yeah.
I did not know you had done that.
It was over a course of 3 or 4 years though.
But still, that's a huge investment. So you were committed. At some point you were like, I'm doing this self-development thing.
Yeah, well, my wife, I went to one, then I took my wife to one, and we went together, and we went through it together.
Yeah.
So
cool.
In total, we spent maybe close to 50 grand on this stuff. And it was a great investment, it changed our lives. And I took a lot of the work that I learned, and I'm teaching it to kids now. And so it wasn't in the seminar, it's great. The problem is outside the seminar.
Yeah.
And and I was always looking for more ways to do things and learn about it and do it more often. And I think when I ran into you at Fred Luskin's thing, and when we first met and we started going through it together, I'm like, I really thought that forgiveness was a way of blocking these shitty emotions, like blocking these feelings of guilt. I was actually looking for a way to justify blocking my emotions because I didn't like how it felt. I didn't like how I acted when I felt those ways, and I didn't know how to get out of it. And the only way I knew how to get out of it was to block it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you put up walls and you block things, you block a lot of other things.
Like what?
Not only like you block out sadness, you block out love, you block out grief, you block out joy. I was blocking out anything that felt like any kind of, I thought that, well, I'll just block out emotions from here, but I'll wait for the good emotions to come and I'll let those in. But it didn't, I thought it was working, but it wasn't working that way.
So you were all up here.
Yes.
Even though you knew you were supposed to connect here and here, you were still up here because again, you said I wasn't taught how.
Yes.
Okay.
I was taught to do it.
Yeah.
But not how to do it.
Yeah.
And
okay. So, tell me more.
I think we go through this work together. You create this awesome curriculum, Mindful Forgiveness in the Practice Center, and introduce you to attitudinal healing. And that's all great and stuff. And encouraging conversations. That's all great. And it's totally awesome. And I love it. And it makes me feel good learning and experiencing this stuff.
Yeah.
But I still didn't understand it fully. I thought I did. I think my biggest mistake was that I understood it, that I knew what it was. My arrogance, my ego telling me, you know this stuff, you've memorized the curriculum, you know the steps on how to do it, you've watched the videos and all this because you've met with Joey, you know it.
Yeah.
But there was something inside of me that kind of still didn't know it.
Yeah.
And I use the analogy of baseball a lot. And you never really know if you really learn the skill, like hitting or throwing, or if the skills you learned are really effective or it works, if you've only done it at practice.
Right.
And I think the best test of anyone's skills in anything is when you, as for athletics, is in a game.
Yes.
And I had all this knowledge of what to do and about how to do it now. But I don't think I really had any game experience until my mom's situation. And so my mom supported me through all of this. My dad died in 2012 of colon cancer. And, my mom, fast forward 8 years after that, I stayed in my dad and I helped my dad in hospice. And for lack of better words, I watched him pass. And I don't know, for me, the memories never subside. And so fast forward 8 years, now I've learned all this experience, and my mom tells me, oh, I might have leukemia, and we're in the hospital sitting with her. And I still remember that day when she says, the doctors, yeah, your mom has leukemia. It's an aggressive form. We don't even know which form it is. And we're going to start chemo. And I remember having that discussion with my mom, and it was just her and I, because I went to visit her. And when she got diagnosed with it, this was back in February of 2020. We know what was happening in 2020. And this is at the height of COVID. And if you don't know anything about leukemia affects your immune system, and you have no ability to block these immunities. And now COVID's starting, and we don't know much about it, and people are dying from it. And I remember sitting next to my mom's bed, and she told me, I don't want to go through chemo again, because she's been through it before. And she's like, I don't want to go through it again. And I had like a whole bunch of thoughts in my head. And it was all about, yeah, but I want you here. And what about me? And I still need you. And I want you to meet your grandkids, and I want my grandkids to know you. And it was instantly about me, like all those thoughts. But it all happened in a matter of 3 seconds. And my mom cried, and I cried too. And I remember I just told her, you know what? Who the hell am I to tell her what her choice about her life is? Which I learned in attitude. And like, who are we to tell people how to live their life? And after I let myself hear all that stuff about what I want for her and what I think she should do, and she should go through chemo and suck it up, I just told her, I smiled and I said, it's whatever you want to do, Mom. I mean, we'll make the rest of your life the best of your life. Oh. Mm. And so she said, that's what I want to do. And I said, okay, let's do it then. And let's go enjoy this, And I remember her saying, I want to go home. I go, let's go. Let's go home. Let's find out when you can go home. Let's go. And then, I thought, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go home and take care of her and do whatever I gotta do to make her feel comfortable and happy. And it's hospice care. I give those hospice workers so much credit. So my mom had home hospice. And I think those 3 months, that was the game for me. And I finally learned really the value of forgiveness. And I can still hear my arrogant self in the first month and 2 months, where I got this. This isn't going to bring me down. Right. But it was hard, for lack of better words, you're watching your mom die. And, I talked to you, and I put myself through another forgiveness class. And then I think that's when I really learned that if forgiveness isn't about blocking feelings or emotions, it's being courageous enough to go through it. And walking through that prickly bush of grief and sadness and anger and frustration and resentment, I'm not going to feel good. And it's okay. And I thought that I had to be strong, and my perspective of being strong was not showing emotions or not getting angry. And I still didn't learn it. Going through it, my mom was still, I still didn't learn it. And, I was on my platitude of, I'll stay positive. I'll do what I gotta do. I'll show her I'm positive. I don't want her to see me negative. And it was really fucking frustrating when you can't do anything about the pain that somebody's going through. There's nothing you can do. Like, we tried everything, and I was angry because I was like, why isn't any of this stuff working? And and then I could see myself going back to that egotistical state where it's like, I don't want to see her like this anymore. I don't want to see her like this anymore. And I remember being resentful to my family because, they should be here more often. They should be helping more, and they should do this. And then when they tell me, okay, Kaipo, we'll take a break. I'll stay with mom tonight. And all the resentments that I had towards my family, I could hear out of my mouth come out. No, I want to stay with mom. But I told myself, I know I need a break. And I had all these mixed emotions where when my dad passed, it was the night that we took a break. And we got a nurse to stay. And, we still frame it differently, that maybe he passed because he knew that we could all relax, and that's why he wanted to pass. But I still hold on to that memory that maybe it would have been different if I was there. And I think even though that I felt that I needed a break, and it was causing me to be upset, that I was afraid if I left that my mom would pass. And I remember the morning my mom passed, like, my wife came. She's an ER nurse. Thank God, she helped a lot. But she came, and my sister-in-law came, and they're like, go to work today. Like, go to work, and my brother was there. My wife was there. She's an ER nurse, and my sister-in-law was there. And when I was pulling into the driveway, my sister-in-law was like, Kaipo, you gotta come home now. And my mom had a rough night the night before. We were up all night. I was up with her all night, trying to keep her comfortable. And, when I got there, and, she was laying in bed, and we were all there, and she passed. My first emotion wasn't sadness, and I'm confused a little bit, but my first emotion was relief.
Yeah.
And I guess because of all the suffering I saw her go through, and all the suffering that that I went through, that I didn't realize it. I think that was one of my most significant experiences of peace. And the irony of it is, how do you find peace in death? And there was so much relief for my mom. And I felt like, am I not acting right because I'm not uncontrollably crying? Or, I felt guilty for not being as sad as everyone else at that moment.
Yeah.
And I carried that regret with me all the way until my mom's, probably for 3 months, to my mom's service. At my mom's service and after my mom's service, I think that's what I realized, that how I felt wasn't good, bad, right, or wrong. It was just, it is how I feel. I don't have to justify it to anybody. I don't have to explain it to anybody. And if anybody wants to know why I felt the way I felt.
And did it feel real to you?
I think sitting outside of the mortuary, just seeing all the people come, and just being okay with how I felt or what I felt. And I really think that's when I finally experienced self-forgiveness. And when I finally experienced peace. And I'm not saying I'm still at peace, but I know what peace feels like, which at least gives me a guide to where I want to be.
What did it feel
And
like? Can you describe like what your sensations were, or how it
I know
was
what it didn't
different?
feel like.
Okay.
I know what it didn't feel like. It didn't feel like tightness in the back of my neck. It didn't feel like a headache on the sides of my temple. It didn't feel like my jaws being sore here. It was a feeling of, it was light and like weightlessness and I guess gliding. And I think after that experience, I have a better idea of what attitudinal healing is. I have a better idea of what forgiveness is. And I don't totally know it yet, but I know how to get there.
Yeah. We talk a lot about grief is the doorway to forgiveness. The natural conclusion to grieving is forgiveness, but we can't get to forgiveness or this idea of letting go without going through grief. And it's around that time that WandaVision came out, and where you started using a particular scene in WandaVision to articulate this experience in you. So can you describe that scene that you were teaching a lot at the time and how that grief allowed you to express kind of what you were going through? Because it was very parallel.
I thought that grief was only bad. And I love the way that the practice center puts to what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is not blocking those shitty emotions. It's changing your experience around it. And I didn't know what that meant for years, Joey. I'm telling you straight up. I was like, what do you mean changing your experience? And then I watched WandaVision on Disney, Disney Plus, you watch WandaVision. And Vision and Wanda are talking. Wanda's been through a lot. She lost her parents, she lost her brother, and she watches TV to kind of not think about those sadnesses. And Vision, who's only been on the planet for like a few days, they're talking, and he's trying to understand what grief is because he doesn't understand. And Vision and Wanda is trying to justify it's never going to go away, it's never going to change. And Vision, has this epiphany, and he says, and this is the line that I always go to, is that what is grief but love persevering? And when I heard that, I was like, you only grieve about things you care about. And if there's grief, there's love somewhere. If there's anger, there's love somewhere, which goes right into, Dr. John Polsky's book and attitudinal healing. I listened to all his books and I heard it and I knew it, but I never really knew what love was until I understood grief. Then it took me back to my mom's thing. Is that why I felt so angry and resentful and frustrated, and why I felt that so often is because I love my mom so much. Mm-hmm. And love and grief are a package deal.
Fred Luskin says that there are two problems with grief. We don't do it enough. Some people do it too much. The natural conclusion to grief is letting go, because it's really beautiful the way you're articulating your grief process. And now I'm curious as to where are you in that process? What other works? How is that feeling for you? And then now what?
So I am not very an organized person. I'm going to answer the question. And so I got this year, my first time I've ever had a planner. Yeah, a planner. But this plan is a little bit different. It's not only about times and schedules. In the beginning part, there's a whole bunch of journaling that you have to do.
Look at you writing
in order
out.
to get to the scheduling part. More writing, and guess what? More writing. Yeah.
Good job.
6 hours yesterday I spent on it. And I was there's like, you end up coming up with like 12 different goals, and I'm like, how the fuck am I going to accomplish 12 goals in a year? I can barely do 3 or 4. And so I just did the work. I didn't ask questions. Before I started it, I was like, I know what to do and how to do. I know how to lose weight. I know how to meditate. I know why I want to meditate. I know why to lose weight. I know why to diet.
Yeah.
It's just that I'm not freaking doing it. Tim Ferriss says this, you know how to accomplish these things. Now you just got to do it. So before I started, I purposely meditated for 10 minutes. And then I put on breathing music. I closed my door. I went into my office. And then I went through this. I finally realized that the goals wasn't about accomplishing it. It was about setting boundaries and giving me direction when making decisions. And so when I walked around the house after I wrote my goals and I set my boundaries and had an idea of where I want to go, I walked around the house, I walked around my garage, and I started looking at things, and I was like, I want to declutter my garage because there's a lot of things in here that I have that I'm holding on to that I don't need. And then I was like, holy shit. As a New Year's resolution, instead of being a resolution about things to accomplish or tasks to accomplish, I picked a resolution to be committed to these ways of being for the year: abundance, gratitude, curiosity. And I had this whole conversation in my head with my wife. I said, why are we holding on to this? And she was like, well, we might need it. I said, for what? And she's like, I don't know. We might need it in the future. I'm like, for what? And the question that came up was, why are we holding on to this stuff? And I was like, oh my God, it's not only about the stuff in my garage. And so abundance isn't about having a lot of stuff. In my perspective of this morning, abundance is about realizing the value of the things you have. And if there's anything that you need, there's an abundance of it out on the planet if you really, really need it. But what do you really, really need, Kaipo? Like, Kaipo, what do you really, really need? And the process of letting go, I think for myself, starts with my cleaning my garage, cleaning my car, and letting go of all this junk that really serves no purpose in my life anymore.
So can you point to one specific example of how all of this work has improved a relationship? So pick a kid
hands down, my wife, me and my wife. You know, it's setting boundaries and expressing it and having these courageous conversations. And sometimes the courageous conversation is 2 letters, starts with N and ends with O sometimes. And understanding forgiveness improves relationships. One specific thing?
Just one. And just try to...
I'm buying a new car. Okay. So I told him I want to get a new car. My wife said, we can't afford it. We don't have money. And I had heard this whole story about why is that everyone else gets what I want. And when I want something, my priorities get put on the back burner. And instead of asking my wife, I told her, I would like a new car because I think I deserve it. And I'm okay if you're not okay with it. And then I had this thought in my head. I could feel all the old ways I used to think where I'm going to prepare for this conversation because I'm going to win it.
Yeah. And
I had this whole fight planned out in my head. Like as a police, you try to come back, like you watch football film and you try to come up with every defense to every offense. And so I had it all planned in my head, that conversation. And I had the whole fight in my head. I was getting myself all worked up, but I could feel it. And I was like, okay, I'm ready. And I took a deep breath and I said, I want to buy a new car. There's only one more coming in this year. And this is what I want. And I had the fight ready. And she said, okay. And then I finally clicked that about 80% of the fights that arguments that me and my wife got into didn't actually happen. They were all up here. And I won all of them up here. Actually, no, you know what? I take that back. I lost a lot of them up here. Yeah. And so, and there are some conversations that don't go my way.
Right.
And it's not really more about winning the conversation or getting what I want. But what I found that feels best is actually saying, no, I don't want to go to your soccer game. No, I can't pick up the kids today. You said you're going to pick them up. You can pick them up. Or, no, I can't change my schedule so that you can to accommodate your work schedule this time. And being okay with the way she feels and she acts, and then going back to grief is that she's only acting that way because she cares about something. Yeah. And knowing that she deeply cares about something is fantastic.
Yes. Hi. So Kaipo, ultimately, you are very unique in our space of doing mindfulness and forgiveness and attitudinal healing work because you're a man. You are a sergeant in the police department. Both of those things has a lot of societal push for you to be a certain way that you described at the beginning. So all this softening and this grief work and being okay and allowing yourself to relax has an impact in the way that you do your job. Is there anything you can point to that says, I have more peace around my work? And more importantly, what I'm interested in any message you can give to other men, other police officers, or people who identify with the way you shared your story. What can they do? What would you advise, or what would you guide or support them in doing?
I think for other police, so in the basic leadership development course, we have our peers, our human resources people come in, and we have an HPD counselor that comes in and tells them that, you know, the service is available to the officers. And so I go to the police psychologist or the counselor, and I thought, you know what, if I'm going to suggest people to go, I should go myself.
Yes.
And I want to see what it's like. And so I was going to go like once or twice to see what it's like. 8 sessions later, I'm still looking to make my next appointment. And the irony of it all is that everything that we talked, I thought, you know, maybe she'll have a different perspective of what Joey says, and maybe Joey will have a different perspective. And then the opposite happens, where it's like, oh my gosh, they all blend, and it's not about 2 different things. It's about 2 different perspectives, but it's all going in the same direction. And so it's okay to feel shitty. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to care about people and care about their situations, and tell people that you care about them. And there are people in the world that love hearing that police officers care. Especially when it comes to solving community problems, it's okay to say no about what you're going to do and what you can and can't do, and setting boundaries and expectations. And it's okay to say no, and for them to be mad at you.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be sad that they're mad at you because they care about you or the situation, which is great. And it helps me solve a lot more community problems. Like forgiveness has helped me solve more community problems, and delegated and given solution finding to everyone else, where not everything's on my shoulders to solve the problems. Right. And I think forgiveness played a big part of it for me. And forgiveness, to me, forgiveness breeds the thing that breeds resilience. Yes. But at the same time, telling people that, I don't know what to do. It's a good question. What do you think?
Yeah.
I don't know either. Me too. I hope we can find an answer. Yeah. And the forgiveness isn't, it's a process. And the process, when you first learn it, it seems like a big process. And just like any other skill, when you get better at doing it, you unknowingly walk yourself through the process in this amount of time. And instead of being resentful for this amount of time, at least maybe we can, maybe not all the way down to this, but at least less. Because the more we stay in suffering, the more we stay in resentment, the more we say shoulda, woulda, coulda, supposed to, the less we are using that energy to find solutions to what it is we're angry about.
Amen. Amen, man. Oh, that was so beautiful, Kaipo. So final word, what you got for us?
Patience. I think what I really want to say is that in all of my recent experience in life is very limited. And how do you want to choose to experience that time of life? And if you wanted to be in suffering and grief, that's your choice, and I'm okay with that. But I'm just letting you know you do have a choice in how you want to invest the limited time that we have here on this beautiful planet.
Beautiful. Man, Kaipo, thank you so much for your openness and your vulnerability and your willingness to like really just kind of crack open your heart and share, because that's a skill that's rare and one that we really work to cultivate at the Practice Center. And so I feel very lucky to have walked this journey with you. You and I both have grown tremendously. At the beginning, neither of us knew, because we were learning the thing, building the thing, working on the thing, and it's going to be messy. And we've gone through messy times, but seeing you here now, holy shit. Can I just tell you, I am shocked. I am extremely proud. I have been with you during the tough times, but not, I mean, how can you really, really know, right? And so a lot of what I heard from you today was new pieces of a story that I felt like I knew. So I feel incredibly lucky to be a partner in this walk that we're doing. So thank you so much.
Oh, and thank you, Joey. You're probably one of the only people that probably had the biggest impact of me being able to let go of all the blocking that I was doing.
Well, here's to
And
what, 30 more years of this stuff, 40, 50 more years of this stuff together.
easy. Our
Easy.
limited time. We're not even halfway through. We got so much more time left, and yet so little time left. So
Exactly. Well, thank you for listening. See you next time. Bye.
bye.